I would like to warmly welcome you to our panel on the base of the future. Perhaps the most relevant topic aligned to this year's conference theme, Aerospace Nation, Air, Space, and Cyber Forces in the Fight. I'm Doug RAABERG, the Air Force Association's Executive Vice President. It is an honor to serve as your panel moderator. Joining me are four fabulous leaders from the Department of the Air Force and two Fortune 200 partners in the energy and telecommunications sectors. From responding to natural disasters like the devastation of Tyndall Air Force Base following Hurricane Michael in 2018, to deploying capabilities around the globe, our panelists deeply understand the challenges, opportunities, and innovations to operate in, from, and through the base of the future, particularly at home or when deployed to and within contested battle space. Perhaps one of the key elements to Joint All-Domain Command and Control, or JADC2, is the base of the future, where energy, telecommunications, base defense, and systems of systems call for a new resilience, adaptability, and sustainment in modern warfare and posturing of capability at home and abroad. Please welcome my guests. Mr. Eric SILAGY, President and CEO of Florida Power and Light, a subsidiary of NextEra Energy Incorporated, one of the largest investor-owned electric utilities in the nation. He knows the Air Force well as the son of an Air Force family. Brigadier General PATRICE, Mobilization Assistant to the Commander, Air Force Installation and Mission Support Center, Joint Base San Antonio, Lackland, and is currently serving as the Executive Director of the Tyndall Reconstruction Program Management Office. Brigadier General William B.K. KALE, Air Force Director of Civil Engineers and Deputy Chief of Staff for Logistics, Engineering, and Force Protection. And finally, U.S. Air Force Colonel Retired Lance Spencer, Client Executive Vice President for AT&T, the world's largest telecommunications company, and a lot more. General MELANCON, would you please provide some opening remarks?
Certainly. Thank you, Doug, for the kind introduction and for bringing my fellow panelists for this very timely opportunity to talk about the base of the future and how what we're doing at Tyndall is more than just executing a nearly $5 billion rebuild program. My mission in life for the last year and a half has been to lead the PMO team to push the limits of the norm and really reimagine Tyndall and what that might mean for the future of the Air Force and even more broadly, the Department of Defense. The base of the future is going to be more focused on resiliency, sustainability, and smart technology. Innovation is at the very core of what we're doing, not only in the smart technologies that will be implemented, but in the agile process, the how of building the base we need, not the base we had. We've had great support from the AFWERX team in exploring how we can employ other transactional agreements to deliver an ever-evolving base of the future, not just at Tyndall, but across the DoD infrastructure. It really has been the opportunity of a lifetime to be leading the charge of reimagining Tyndall as a base of the future and paving the way for other bases to follow in our footsteps. Thank you so much for providing the space for us to continue developing what this means to the 21st century air and space forces. Thanks, Doug.
Thank you, General. Appreciate that a lot. Eric, would you please provide some opening remarks? Thank you.
Thank you, General. It's a real honor and a pleasure to be here today. As you said, I've got a little bit of a background in the Air Force from being the son of a SAC pilot and having spent my youth moving around the world and going to different spots, different bases, where he eventually retired out of the Pentagon, and we moved back to Louisiana because he was stationed at Barksdale at one point before I was born. And I also spent a number of years working on Capitol Hill, for a senior defense appropriator. So I've worked on a number of defense appropriation and MILCON budgets. And so I understand the challenges that come also with trying to procure the necessary support and funding for a lot of these projects. In my role as CEO of Florida Power and Light, we're responsible for providing power to more than half the state of Florida. We also have Gulf Power, which also provides power to the Panhandle and importantly to Tyndall Air Force Base. But we're also part of NextEra Energy, which is by market cap the largest energy provider in the world. We do work in 48 of the 50 states and Canada. And, we're also the largest producer of electricity in the world from wind and solar as well as batteries. But we also are one of the largest providers of electricity in the United States utilizing nuclear power and gas-fired generation. So if anything, we do understand the importance of kind of being all the above, if you will, and having the flexibility, adaptability, and ability to provide electricity under all circumstances. And the importance that serves to all of our military bases across the United States and of course across the world, wherever they may be. So it's a real honor to be part of this panel, talk about the base of the future, talk about our work at Tyndall Air Force Base with Gulf Power and with General Melançon, been working with her closely. And we're excited about the opportunity to look at how we can move forward with the Air Force on creating a base that really is situated and set up for the next century, and making sure that the Air Force can meet its mission by having a base that's ready 24/7 to do that.
That's terrific. Thank you, Eric. Can I hand it over now to General BK KALE, please?
Thank you, General. It's an honor to be here, and I definitely appreciate sitting on the board here with Patrice, Eric, and Lance. It's a great group of folks. So right now, we've reached a critical point in time where the Air Force must assess its enduring strength, resiliency, and efficacy of its installations. Air Force installations are the foundation to mission generation and play an integral role in the lives of airmen and their families, surrounding communities. We face some formidable challenges right now. Our installations are not sanctuaries as we continue to compete with near-peer adversaries. Our installations are not immune to severe weather and climate events. Our installations are not modern and must be upgraded to meet future operating environment and withstand threats across all domains. And we must transform our installations while operating under continuous budget constraints. But with all great challenges, this provides an opportunity for us to make some changes. We have revamped, or we are revamping, the way we're doing business with the installation of the future concept and our installation investment strategy, affectionately known as I2S. The Air Force installation of the future is a resilient, adaptive, sustainable, connected power projection platform that enables joint all-domain command and control and never stops evolving to meet mission requirements, enhance the well-being of our airmen and families, and support our partners. We also have an immediate opportunity to rebuild bases like Tyndall and Offutt as installations of the future. But at the headquarters, we're looking bigger at that. We're developing our strategies to transform the rest of the portfolio by planning improvements from the community perspective, by incorporating new technologies, by targeting response and recovery capabilities, and then emphasizing quality life improvements for our personnel and their dependents. Finally, the I2S guides Air Force investment to restore readiness and cost-effectively modernize their facilities and infrastructure. It refocuses our attention to optimizing sustainment and eliminating infrastructure in poor condition. I am honored to serve right now, and we are in a really exciting time. Thank you, Doug.
Oh, thank you, sir. And Lance, can I hand it over to you for some opening remarks, please?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. It's really exciting to be on the panel with these great leaders today. So thank you very much, Doug, for inviting me, and thank you all for helping continue this conversation. And I think it's really important to create a lot of hype and excitement around Base of the Future and help the Air Force really move out and make it a reality. A couple brief comments up front. First of all, you may know we were on the ground both during Hurricane Michael at Tyndall and at Offutt during the Platte River flood. We had our FirstNet crews in place in the Panhandle when Michael came through. We were immediately on base at Tyndall, providing emergency communications to restore the Tyndall enterprise and help the Air Force start recovery and rebuilding. And at Offutt, we had just kicked off the network as a service effort when the river started to crest. And so we've been at the forefront there as well, helping the Air Force think through how do they bring that resiliency and that survivability and that state-of-the-art transformed delivery of services to that base as well. I think a few quick thoughts. One is, we think it's important to think global and think about an enterprise. So delivering capability at an enterprise level and then having agility and services at the edge is really vital. Prove it with the pilots and then scale fast and you can get capability out there and get uniformity. It gets extremely complex if there's a patchwork quilt of capabilities out there. So having uniformity, I think, brings a lot of value as the Air Force embraces modern capabilities and technologies. The ability to see at the force level as well as at the mission and at the tactical level will be some results. Another thing, and I think the Air Force is really working at this, is don't duplicate commercial investment and innovation. We, for example, have spent $135 billion on things like this in the last 5 years. It's a core business for us to build out capabilities across municipalities, companies, and various sectors. So leverage what companies like we are doing. Go with partners that we've vetted. We're doing the same thing the Air Force is doing, trying to figure out how to bring capabilities to cities and states and communities, capitalize off energy and investment we've already brought and help get moving faster. And then I guess one last thing is you can't build 5G fast enough. In the time it takes to put together a POM initiative and get it through the POM cycle, we have built out FirstNet nationwide. And you see the commercials, the whole industry have built out nationwide 5G. We declared nationwide 5G in July. And it's tough to get on military bases and build and get coverage. And it's fundamental to a base of the future environment is getting that modern connectivity in place. So I would encourage the Air Force to find ways to basically open the gates and help companies like us get in there and provide that foundational capability that'll underlie all the base of the future capabilities.
That's a wonderful start from all four of you. I think a common theme I'm hearing is what Secretary Esper, the Secretary of Defense, emphasizes quite often is how do you accelerate technologies like hypersonics and 5G and perhaps other technologies that are very important to the base of the future. So let's go ahead and step right into some questions. I know our audience is very excited about hearing what you have to say. So let's start with you, Patrice. Really, what does it mean when we hear the Air Force is rebuilding Tyndall as the base of the future?
Thanks, Doug. So the base of the future, as I mentioned earlier, is a resilient installation. It's built to withstand natural disasters and optimize mission readiness. By integrating the newest technology and infrastructure, updated cybersecurity, and the most creative innovations, we're ensuring Tyndall is going to be around for the next 100 years, despite the environmental and climatic norms of Florida. The things we did really early on established the foundation of the entire rebuild as we applied the most current concepts in urban planning to our overhaul master plan. We employed right sizing to include consolidation where it made sense, and right siting to maximize the use of our land and create more walkable campuses. We've specifically considered 3 types of resiliency: climatic, energy, and coastal. With climatic resiliency, we published installation facility standards that set design flood elevations specific to Tyndall Air Force Base, as well as wind speeds and material codes that enhance the structural durability of our facilities. To set those design flood elevations, our subject matter experts considered historic and rainfall projections, as well as industry models that predict sea level rise into the future, because we know that this is happening. Our structural engineers revised our building envelope structural standards to update design wind speeds specific to building risk category. And we also incorporated some best practices from the Florida Building Code high velocity hurricane zone standards. In the area of energy resiliency, we're exploring a variety of options to include microgrids, self-healing grids, and alternate energy sources, along with the ability to operate connected or disconnected from the local power supply. Because Tyndall's utilities are privatized, we've partnered very closely with the Defense Logistics Agency and the system owners to explore what's within the realm of the possible here. We've also brought in one of Department of Energy's labs to help us with some modeling and evaluation of potential energy solutions. In the area of coastal resiliency, there's a lot of interest in piloting a variety of techniques to restore the coastline and bays that surround Tyndall and serve as a natural buffer to those storm events that happen. We're exploring some new techniques to restore and enhance the dunes and beaches on the barrier islands, as well as looking at buildup of the tidal flats and marshes in the East Bay area. Many agencies, to include World Wildlife Fund, Restore America's Estuaries, and Florida DEP are really excited to use Tyndall as a proving ground to try out some new techniques that could then be applied across coastlines everywhere in the nation and frankly, potentially in the world. We have a very strong partnership with the Army Corps of Engineers in this arena, one of many where they really are serving side by side with us in the rebuild. The last aspect I want to mention is digital integration and the use of machine learning. Our flight line maintainers are already moving towards condition-based maintenance of aircraft as part of the flight line of the future. There's a plethora of sensing capability already available in industry, and it comes pre-installed on our mechanical, electrical, and power equipment. But we're not using any of that data right now. So we're working to be able to collect data from that built infrastructure, sensors, apply machine learning algorithms that are going to allow us to do maintenance at the right time, not just based on manufacturer recommendations or, frankly, when the system is hard broken. This is going to be a real game changer as we implement the Secretary-in-Chief's installation investment strategy that General KALE mentioned early on. That was published in January of 19. This is really going to allow us to get after that in a very real and tangible way. We're also incorporating new technology in base defense to include things like gunshot detection, occupancy sensors, and some remote sensing technologies. Thanks for letting me give you a little bit of a taste of what we're doing here at Tyndall in the rebuild.
That's a perfect lead into the question I want to ask Eric. Eric, Florida Power and Light, NextEra Energy, strike me as corporations that are more technical and provide technology, but yet deliver power. So my question is, what effort is the Gulf Power team taking to rebuild Tyndall? And then, particularly from a business aspect, what opportunities do you see exportable to other Department of Defense bases, or perhaps are scalable to expeditionary operations?
So we've been working with General Melanson and her team now for well over a year on different options that Tyndall can look at with respect to, what's the best type of approach for meeting the base's needs on a resiliency and a readiness standpoint, and really looking at what are the technologies that we can bring to bear today, and then also how do you create that optionality for technologies that we could see coming down the pipe today, as well as things that we don't know what's going to come around the corner. One of our goals at our company is to make sure that we're always really trying to look around the corner and seeing what are the technologies that are going to be available to us, and what are the technologies that really aren't even designed for the energy industry, as Lance was talking about, taking off-the-shelf technology but applying it in ways that maybe it wasn't originally designed for. We live and work in a state in Florida where, as an example, we have to deal with Mother Nature all the time, whether it's hurricanes or or whether it's tornadoes occasionally or other natural disasters that we have to deal with. And so we've been investing for years, billions of dollars every year, as a matter of fact, in making sure that our grid is the strongest and the smartest in the country, if not the world. And also making sure that we can bring technology to bear that allows us, when Mother Nature does strike, because the truth of the matter is nothing is hurricane proof or even tornado proof that you build, even with the best of building codes. So then how do you recover as rapidly as well as safely as possible? So Irma is a good example. We had a strong category 4 storm hit Florida 2 years ago. It knocked out 4 million of our 5.1 million customers. And within 24 hours, we had more than half, over 2 million customers restored. And then all customers restored days earlier than we would have been just a few years before, because of the investments we had made in both technology as well as resiliency for things like changing out wood poles to concrete and steel. So Tyndall is an opportunity to really take all of the various lessons learned that we've had through the years of storm response, as well as technology, and making sure that we can apply those in a way that would help the base be mission ready when it needs to be. Now, part of the question that I think Air Force leadership has to ask itself is, what is mission ready, and what is critical that needs to be up and running in a short period of time? As a teenager, I'll give you an example. I would have told you that the base exchange was actually critical, but I don't think it really is mission critical. And so the flight line clearly is mission critical. The tower would be mission critical. The ability to be able to deploy, receive and deploy aircraft. We need to be able to understand what exactly is it that the base would need in order to be functional and operational. And once we have that, then we could actually design a system and look at different opportunities to make sure that within a certain period of time, whether it's minutes or hours or days, the base is back up and running. And there are different things that you can do to apply to make that work. And of course, they all come with different price points. And so recognizing that, there are limits to everything. And, the question is it best to spend that extra incremental dollar on making sure that the base can be back up and running, 5 minutes earlier versus putting that into a weapons platform? That's what we want to make sure that as a company, we're helping the Air Force and the armed forces, for that matter, and other bases we're helping, maximize and rationalize the best use of every dollar deployed. Because the truth of the matter is the U.S. grid is exceptionally reliable on a day-to-day basis. And so what we're really trying to guard against are those pinhole risks, if you will, as well as those risks that come with Mother Nature, who will always throw curveballs at us, but making sure that the base can recover quickly and meet its needs. And, General Lawson, I got to tell you, when you were talking about utilizing the technology now on the flight line and then maintenance particularly, that's an area that we've been doing now in our fleet of gas turbines, which are just really, really big jet engines. And so we've been using predictive analytics to do exactly what you're talking about. So we're not relying on just manufacturer recommendations, but we're actually now predicting failures before they occur, so we can actually go in and repair them before they break. And we're doing that either at the gas turbine level. We're also doing it even on individual homes now, where we're knocking on people's doors because of the smart meter and smart grid technology and telling folks, you don't have an outage right now, but based on our analytics, you're going to have an outage within the next 72 to 96 hours. And we're doing that with a 90% factor of confidence factor, so we can actually go in and fix things before they break and make sure that people don't have interruptions. Those are the kind of things that I think the private sector can help and bring to bear with the base of the future. So as you rebuild Tyndall, you build it in a way that has maximum optionality and flexibility to be able to adapt to that new technology as it comes down the pipe. My father had all kinds of things that he used to say to me, particularly when he was teaching me to fly. But one of the things he always said to me was that the key to air superiority, one of the keys, is flexibility. He said that to me so many times. And I think that's true in how Tyndall and other bases going forward spend their MELANCON dollars to make sure that they are ready not just today, but in the next 20, 50, and 100 years.
Eric, thank you. I tell you, this is a great start for a discussion. BK, I want to kind of shift over to you because I think the common theme here is obviously when it comes to the threat, nothing always, your plans, your strategy, and what you've set up may not necessarily survive contact with the enemy, so to speak. So the question is, from the Department of the Air Force level, what policy changes are you considering in order to really ensure greater resilience, as we've talked about, against those extreme threats, be it natural disaster all the way to actual enemy forces in contact?
Well, thank you. I think that's a great point. We're taking a holistic look, not just looking at weather, but also looking at wartime readiness. And while they have a lot of similarities, there are also a lot of differences that you have to take into account. The one thing I'd like to say is I mean, working with PATRICE, we have a great opportunity to look at a lot of lessons learned. And working with Tyndall and Offutt and seeing the new innovation and technologies that they're installing there, we're going to take those opportunities and then exploit them across the rest of the enterprise. Our way of war fighting is we always fight from the base. It's kind of foundational in our doctrine. But with the new relook at our near peer adversaries, we need the flexibility of being able to bounce around and move around. And every platform and every installation is a sensor. And so our mission partners need to be able to plug and play no matter where they go. And I think this installation of the future is critical to that. Not only just looking at kind of our OCONUS or our OCONUS bases, but forward operating locations and we need to be able to go anywhere at any time to exploit our adversaries' weaknesses, and that's kind of what we're driving at. We've done a lot of this work with the help of Congress, and I don't mean that in a negative way. We've had very positive dialogue, and they've laid out a lot of legislation in the NDAA and FY20, and there's some new things coming out in 21. Most of that is focused on natural disaster preparedness, but it does have a wartime readiness aspect to that. And it's enabled us to codify our processes, to build installation and facility development plans, and then more importantly, execute them in a data-driven manner. Eric did a great job talking about the analytics and being proactive, and that's the same type of goal that we're striving for. We're trying to take an asset management approach across all our installations, and it's a huge task when you have $350 billion worth of plant, to look at, and then to gather all the data to analyze that and to get folks to invest smartly and proactively maintain those systems. It's quite a challenge. The other thing, to piggyback on what Eric and Lance has said, our installations of the future, need to rely on the communities around them, whether it's, here in CONUS or OCONUS, whether it's a big base or a small base. We need to build and leverage on partnerships with the local communities, with organizations, with industry, with other militaries or government. We need to expand our lines of communication, share information, address mutual concerns. And whether there's shared resources or environmental challenges or safety hazards or other capabilities that we can exploit. A couple other things that we're trying to push here is definitely on our kind of information technology front. One, we've built a asset management platform that we're implementing right now to help us capture and get at all this data and inform decisions. But two, we're also developing a disaster response force common operating picture, which, basically when we have a natural disaster or some type of wartime event, leaders at installations will be able to, quickly see what is happening and quickly be able to make decisions and push information out to folks. And ultimately all that will tie into the JADC2 concept to make our installations of the future, a benefit to our warfighting system. Thank you.
BK, thank you. And definitely want to kind of round out with a larger corporation view too, and that is, Lance, you mentioned how AT&T really supports a full spectrum of customers. This is going to be a common theme, those partnerships, from government to industry and academia. But really the bottom line question is, why is this important to the Air Force and the Space Force?
It's important in a number of ways, Doug. Thanks for asking that. To start off with, I mentioned investment and innovation. We bring investment, and depending on the circumstances, we can bring it to the Air Force also. I think a great example of that is we've got 5G up and operating at Tyndall right now. In February, I was able to show the wing commander, Colonel Laidlaw, a screaming fast signal that's emanating right from his base. And we put that there. We paid for that. That's an AT&T investment, and it's an operating day, and it's in place for all these other initiatives to take advantage of to start, building that base of the future. I think about alliances that we forge across the whole private sector. I mean, having Aragon is a great example. AT&T and NextEra are working in NextEra's innovation lab in Juno Beach, Florida, on how to leverage edge compute and millimeter wave 5G. So, we're working across the sectors and across a partnership base in that area as an example. Companies big and small who deliver capability are partners. We build alliances across the ecosystem. You may see our brand label on it, but it's really a lot of companies behind the scenes making it happen. I think that's important because we invest sometimes to the tunes of billions of dollars together to make capabilities work together. So leveraging that instead of reinventing it, I think is really important. You get the economies of that investment across major companies. As I mentioned, Base of the Future Technologies is a core business for AT&T. We're doing this in cities across the United States. And so we're vetting companies big and small that can be part of that ecosystem. And one thing we find is that sometimes a point solution doesn't scale well. It doesn't interoperate and integrate the way it needs to. Others have a great ability and capability to scale and interoperate and integrate, but it needs somebody like an AT&T to breathe life into that. That's one thing we do well, is scaling things out and working with partners to bring their solutions to bear. We're a major consumer of these capabilities ourselves. There probably is an AT&T facility in every city across the country. And so energy resilience, we've got, if not the largest, one of the largest fleets in the United States of our trucks that are out there with the crews delivering capability every day. All those telematics and all those things that go into operating our enterprise as a company ourselves, we're our own consumer in some ways, having to prove it and eating our own dog food and testing it on ourselves sometimes as well. And then I think about global capabilities. We're a global company. There's other global companies out there. When it comes to these expeditionary capabilities and these forward operating locations and things like that, we, for example, operate in over 225 countries. We have extensive in-country relationships with the host nations, with the companies in those countries, and know how to deliver. So I think that's important. And I think my final thought is innovative and new ways are available, I think, to help the Air Force and Space Force think through how they engage with the private sector. Public-private partnerships are a great example. I think maybe I mentioned FirstNet before in my comments. FirstNet's the National Public Safety Broadband Network. It's a government network, but it's operated and delivered by AT&T. And it was a great opportunity of when the U.S. government wanted to bring FirstNet to state, local, and federal governments as well as federal. They need to figure out a cost structure and a delivery structure that would work. And building a public-private partnership allowed AT&T to bring skin to the game and allowed the government to bring skin to the game. And we're able to come together under a construct where we collaborate, we invest, and we operate and deliver together. So I think there's some opportunities to explore situations and scenarios like that also.
Outstanding. Thanks, Lance. I think we all agree that really the base of the future absolutely fits into the all-domain command and control construct of the future. Very quickly, we have about 10 minutes remaining. What I really want to tap is the how. So Eric, I'd like to start with you, if you don't mind, from the Next Era Energy strategy of kind of like creating teams of teams. How do you get that strategy into the joint all-domain command and control and the base of the future based on what your customers' needs are?
So again, a lot of what we do is look at technology and how can we deploy that technology in order to become even more productive, more reliable, and more affordable in whatever the product is where we're providing, whether it's electricity or natural gas or whatever the case is. And so as an example with Tyndall, there's an opportunity for us to take a look at different technologies and to put them out there in a pilot program, if you will. And we do that all the time within our company, and looking at technologies that are commercially available, maybe again, not even designed for our industry, but how can we take that, adapt it, and then pilot it, test it in the field, and then when it works, or if it doesn't, go back to the manufacturer, the developer, change it, and then roll it out across the system on a broad basis. That's the opportunity that I think Tyndall provides. Frankly, the entire Air Force infrastructure is the opportunity to be that test bed, if you will, that base that can prove out different technologies that work and in some cases won't work or need to be adapted in order to really meet the needs of what a base in the U.S. is versus what a base may be, as an example, in other parts of the world, or forward deployed if it's in a hostile area. And so those are all very different needs. So what we do at NextEra is we really try to take a look at what technologies can we deploy in order to meet the customer's needs today, but also be ready for the future. I mean, frankly, I don't even think of us as a utility. We're really a technology company that delivers power to the end user. And so what we do is we look at all the different opportunities to deploy that technology. Our linemen, as an example, right now go out in the field every single day with iPads on their trucks, and they can go out and they can actually talk to each one of the customers that we have, the meters, if you will, to determine what's going on out there. The grid is talking to them. We didn't invent the iPad. We didn't invent Google Maps, which they use. We didn't invent a lot of different platforms that are actually on that iPad, but what we did do is we took that technology, we then adopted it and adapted it to our system. We did invent some apps and some algorithms to go with it to give us greater situational awareness. And then we actually deploy that technology. And it has completely changed the way that we approach our business. It's changed our cost structure. It's significantly reduced the amount of money that we spend. Instead of going out and looking for where the problem is, the grid now is telling us where the problem is. So I'm not sending out 3 trucks looking for something. I'm sending out 1 crew exactly to the location, as an example. So doing all of those things are areas that we can apply those lessons learned. To Lance's point, leverage that commercial expertise on behalf of the Air Force and make it even more efficient, more resilient for the needs every day.
Yeah, Patrice, you are obviously our customer in one respect, but you're also working very closely with shareholders and stakeholders. So simply, the how, do you leverage partnerships when it comes to the base of the future and perhaps its implication on JADC2?
So, we have had to work with a variety of partners, specifically in the area of the JADC2 construct. I really think that the cyber secure digital interaction that we're building is going to allow us to collect and ingest data from a myriad of sources and turn that into actionable information. Data's fine, and you can have it in spades, but if you don't do anything with it, so working with folks like AT&T, with our utility providers, we're going to be able to have an infrastructure that allows us to get after that more condition-based and predictive maintenance. But our partnerships and relationships go even further than that. You know, as I mentioned, we do have, our utilities are privatized, so the Air Force doesn't actually own them anymore. And so it's very, very important that we work very closely, not only with the system owners, but also with Defense Logistics Agency, because the contractual relationship we have with those system owners is through DLA. So we've had to bring them into the fold. In terms of just the execution overall of the program, the Corps of Engineers is executing a large part of the MELCON program. You know, there may be a few projects that the Air Force organically is going to acquire and execute, but the Corps of Engineers is going to be a huge partner. And so we've had to work very closely with the South Atlantic Division, with the Mobile and Savannah districts, in figuring out one of the biggest things that we're still honestly grappling with is the whole construction logistics. We have made a lot of great progress on that in terms of, you know, things as basic as construction haul routes, laydown yards. You know, we're going to have 3,500 construction workers descend on the base at the peak of construction. You know, where and how do you house and feed all those people? So the Corps has been a huge partner for us in looking at all of those concerns and really trying to think outside the box on ways that we can tackle all of those. And then, you know, I mentioned the coastal resiliency. We've had I'm really, really excited about the interest that we have, not only from the Corps of Engineers with the Engineering Research Development Center, but from some organizations like the Southeast Regional Partnership, like NOAA, like the World Wildlife Fund, Nature Conservancy. So partnerships are key to us in being able to tackle this whole thing.
Thank you. Well, we have probably a little less than 5 minutes, so what I'm going to do is kind of ask for some real final thoughts, but I want to start with General KALE. A little bit of final thoughts in terms of the base of the future, definitely regarding cyber and kinetic threat, resiliency, being able to thwart them. Because again, this probably involves a lot of partnership and a lot of technologies. Final thoughts there, General KALE.
I'll say in general, we have the policy in place to get after, you know, these types of things. The challenge is the resourcing and the prioritization of how we get at that. I would say every one of our bases is like a hand-carved wooden shoe. There's no two alike. And there's no two alike with similar partners and similar companies in and around those areas. And so working with those companies and making sure we have good data and then prioritizing our resources to get after it is the challenge at hand.
Thank you. Lance, some final thoughts, definitely around the how of JADC2, base of the future, partnerships.
I would say that some key things that I think the Air Force's Space Force needs to be thinking about, and they are, but is open architectures and solutions, commercial standards, trust. We need to trust each other. We need to come together and figure out how to collaborate and solve problems. I've said 5G a few times. 5G is going to do some things that none of us have thought about yet. And I'm not even counting next Gs. But the way system owners and commanders and officials and everybody else need to be thinking about their construct, they need to be thinking about how it interacts with 5G. We're looking at tens of billions of connected devices over the next few years. So how that ecosystem and every operating environment comes together and provides data and control and awareness and all the things that'll come for that with single millisecond latency is really needs to be top of mind, I think, with everybody. Those are the key things that really come to mind with me as far as where I think that we all need to be thinking.
Thank you. Eric, delivering technology and power simultaneously. Final thoughts?
You know, look, there are so many opportunities, I think, for the Air Force here, particularly given the fact that Tyndall is providing that kind of opportunity because it is being rebuilt, and I think it is it's really important for leadership to determine, first off, what is truly mission critical in order to meet the needs of the base and the mission of the base, and then from there, you know, determine, okay, who is best to partner with on the commercial side to help us get there. You know, establish partnerships. Lance touched on it. It really is about trust, so you can exchange information, and then you establish that trusted partnership and then leverage it, because there's so much information and experience out there that you can leverage that's off the shelf largely, which will save the Air Force millions, if not billions of dollars over the long term. And then we can work together with whomever that is to make sure that the base is truly mission ready and all the critical infrastructure is in place to meet the needs when required. We're excited about the opportunity because I think it is something that then largely can be replicated as bases go through modernizations. And that MILCON dollar is so precious. The question that each leader should be asking is, what is the best way for us to leverage and to utilize each one of those MILCON dollars, as well as then what can we free up that maybe they can then be redeployed into the weapons platforms.
And finally, Patrice, very short lightning round. Thank you for being at the leading edge of the fight, especially when it comes to the base of the future. Final thought and short, please.
Yep, I hope that other bases are going to pay attention to what we've done at Tyndall and give consideration to the variety of measures we're implementing. As they have opportunities to sustain or recapitalize their infrastructure, you know, I want them to look at what we've done and emulate us. While I would never wish a Hurricane Michael on another base, I think every wing commander has a responsibility to think about these base of the future concepts anytime they look at implementing an infrastructure project or renovation, and take what makes sense for their situation and implement. Thank you.
Well, on that note, I want to personally thank each of you for this insightful discussion. It has been a pleasure to have you with us here today at AFA's Virtual Airspace and Cyber Conference. Thank you to those who tuned in to watch this panel on the base of the future. Please be sure to check out the Outstanding Airman of the Year section of the Virtual Airspace and Cyber platform.